Hey everybody, Asher here with some Kerbal Space Program. The title says we're going to Ike. Well, why are we on Kerbin doing essentially the first mission again? If you noticed with the Duna missions and the landings, I had to use a lot of fuel just to get some landings in, and it actually made me wonder. It's been a while since I've actually done anything with parachutes on Kerbin. Is there something up with my parachutes? And it turns out if we look at this test, if we look at the speed, that indeed that is the case. I'm not decelerating and, well, you live. But the problem ended up being, as we're going to see here, is that for some reason when my parachutes would open, whether it was 1,000 meters or 1,500 or 500, they would start to slow things down. When they would pop open before and act as a drogue chute, it actually wouldn't adjust the course of my ship at all. It wouldn't slow it down any, and that's what you'll see here in both of these clips. So what I ended up having to do after going to Reddit and having a bunch of people make all kinds of proposals, I just checked the file integrity of my save and everything. There are 3 or 4 files that were actually off, which I guess makes sense in a way because I've had a lot of crashes lately with Kerbal Space Program, but we're going to see boop into the drink. Not good. But as we go back to just Ike here, a little bit of a transition, I have had to go to the 1.0.2 atmospheres, unfortunately, and otherwise running stock, but at least that means if you are watching at home, you can now kind of play with what I have here. But today we're not having to worry so much about atmospheres. I just want to give that little interlude there. Today we are going to Ike. And on this Ike mission is Jebediah Kerman and Chad Hat Kerman. Always said his mother really loved him. Now, we did have a few tilting problems with the last space station. But this is the one that we landed on the moon, so surely we can make that happen this time because we're not going to have to worry about the atmosphere, we're not going to have to worry about rogue parachutes, and we're going to have to worry about a lot less gravity. So that's the idea, is we have the Duna behemoth now fading off to the side. We have actually a really good course for Ike because, as I said before, all I wanted to do was wait until Ike was passing towards the high end of our elliptical orbit and then get back in. But I'm just checking the mission to make sure the only thing that this does not meet for the qualifications is that it needs to be landed on Ike. So that is what we're doing, and that is where we're flying towards here. Is, of course, I got to remind myself, did I actually activate my engines? So there's Ike in the distance. Notice that it's at kind of the same angle as you expect from something like the moon or Minmus. It's actually really we're just going to make ourselves a base here real quick. And yes, this is post commentary because I had to record this at a time where I could not talk as much. Plus there is just some opportunities to kind of reflect on different things that happen in the video here. So I think that's a little worthwhile, and I apologize if there's popping in the background. I've come to determine that my seat that is very nice and very comfortable is also very loud when I sit in a certain way. So here we go. Once again, trying to fire off. The engine's like, oh, I didn't activate my engines. I do have a lot of fuel, but because we don't have any atmospheric slowdown, I'm actually going to be needing this fuel. And once again, there's Ike. So we're going ahead making our burn. I actually had an old maneuver node that we missed by a lot. And the reason that I missed it was because I decided to accelerate to the day. But it doesn't matter because we have a very neat and fancy just maneuver here. Now, I'm going to make some people mad in this video, and I apologize ahead of time. Because a lot of you in the comments have said, okay, what you need to do to try and do a very efficient landing is to, when you have something that's not an atmospheric body like this, is fly up to it, make an elliptical orbit, and burn slightly at the periaps each time to bring down that orbit. That's the most fuel efficient way you can do this. Is that what I'm going to do in this video? Of course not. I will do it in future videos just to demonstrate it, but I do want to say ahead of time that I am doing something that a lot of people don't realize you can do, which is you put maneuver nodes on top of the maneuver nodes you already have. Actually, I didn't do that here because I didn't have the maneuver node here. You're going to see in a few future videos and clips that I have a maneuver node stuck on here, and I don't know why, because I thought it was this mission, but it's not. But you can see we have a very little delta V to make a pretty stable orbit around Ike, and I am making a pretty circular orbit. Now, Ike is a troll moon. It does orbit a lot closer to Mars. It orbits a lot closer to Duna than the moon does to Kerbin. So we're just going to go ahead and get the legs up, probably get out the solar panels as well. I could use to have bigger solar panels, and that viewing cupola does have a docking port on the top, so that's not great for viewing at least. But notice that Jebediah is in here. Jebediah, much like a previous save I had, is just going to be stuck on Ike for a while. And I think that's going to be okay. They have lots of snacks. They're going to be fine. But there's Ike encroaching. We're now being blocked out by Duna. But this should be a fairly standard landing, I hope. Except the difference between Ike and the moon, and this is a very important difference, is that Ike has a lot more ridges. The moon may have a lot of craters, but Ike is surprisingly difficult to find a flat place to land on. So with a station as top-heavy as this, that could be an issue. And I do know what I can do in the future to try and correct some of these things. Such as you saw the design solution I had on the surface station for Duna, which was actually have legs on the bottom here. If I just design my stations in the future to actually be facing that direction, that'll be okay. So once again, we're just going ahead and getting the science here, and I did get some good tips just regarding. You can go ahead and process the science and have it now, and you don't have to worry about it disappearing. So we're going to be doing that each time. Now, unfortunately, because of the distinct lack of power, and we're going to find in the next few episodes that I actually have a lot of power problems because I'm just relying on essentially 12 solar panels to do a lot more work than that. But there's Ike coming up, as we're just going to be trying to get some science. The science on the Duna station is pathetically slow, but we'll make it happen. Hopefully this one will have better range here. But my goal is to land both on the daylight side and on the side of Ike that is facing Duna. Because much like the moon, Ike is a orbital body that is rotating at the same rate as its planet that it's orbiting. What that means is that the face of Ike will always be facing the planet. If you're wondering why you only ever see one side of the moon, that's pretty much why. Same thing here. So if I land in a place on Ike where I can't see Duna, then we're never going to see it. It'll wobble in the sky a little bit, and you may be able to get to peek out, but not too much. So a little bit of EVA science over Ike. I believe I actually have a contract for just transmitting science over Ike 1 or 2. So yay, contract. We're actually going to be doing pretty good with money here. As once again, I've run into a few other issues too, and I guess I can take some time to talk about those. Is that I've lamented a few times, why can I not get contracts for like exploring Eve, exploring Jewel, exploring Tylo. Oh god, exploring Tylo is going to be a pain. But the main issue is that the contracts are there, and as long as I'm never going to get the Duna contract because I've actually been there and landed now, but the other ones are still on the table. They show up from time to time. They don't expire when you accept them. The problem is actually watching when they show up. Like I probably got offered all of them at some point while I was flying the Duna. So I'm going to have to really micromanage some of that going forward. But you can see I'm at 1 million. I like someone in the comments said Kerbucks or Kerbal dollars. Kerbals. Now we don't want to call them Kerbals because that doesn't really sound like rubles anyway. But let's just go ahead and get a little bit closer into the approach. As once again, I don't know how to X off contracts. I still don't know how to X off contracts. So that's going to be there for a while. And what we are going to do here is I'm going to circularize my orbit. It does not take a big move. And then what we're going to do is probably jump forward here just a little bit because there's a lot of kind of delay because, like I said, one reason is that I was recording when I couldn't really talk, and then I had to step away from things for quite some time because, you know, when you're in a house and you have children, you can't just say, sorry kids, you can just suck it while I play stuff. Unfortunately, in my line of work, I do come across way too many people that do exactly that, but I'm not one of those people. So it's one of those things where I'd love to give you all like 2 or 3 videos a day. If I just dedicated all of my time, all of my spare time, I could do that. But I would really like to spend time with my family. So that's where we are. So I'm circularizing the orbit. I could have gone for an elliptical orbit, but here we are jumping forward. There's the base around Ike. And we're pretty much about ready to make our approach. Now my goal here is to land on the side that's facing Duna, which is very easy to see if you let the map go for a while. But you see that big black splotch there in the middle? I'm going to be landing there. Now, one of the issues with that is that there's still a lot of hills and stuff, and there's a lot of ridges, a lot of slopes, as we're going to see. But it still manages to be flatter. There's a few plateaus on Ike. A lot of those white ridges and stuff, but I'm just going to go for a landing. We're just going to go for it and see how we go. Because with those lighter areas, it can be a big issue where you're either on flat land or you are falling super, super steep. So once again, commenters, feel free to rage and be angry here. I did not do this efficiently. I should have burned a little bit by a little bit on the periapsis each time. But at least I'm not coming in from a super high arc on the elliptical. That's right, that's the right word, orbit. But here's another view here as we have the nice skybox mod up ahead. And this is one of my favorite views in the game, to be honest, is when you're going over a tiny body that suddenly is so much bigger than you might have ever expected, because on the map it just looks so small. Even Gilly looks a lot bigger, and there, peeking over the horizon, is Duna. That red spot that you see in the sky every night is suddenly there, just closer in the sky all the time, just always watching, always looking. Now, if I were to land right here, I actually would not see Duna. I don't think I'd see Duna, because it'd be below the horizon. But since we are about 60,000 meters up, we can still see it. We're going to try and land as we have the thing rotating just a little bit here. I'm not going to do an exact suicide burn. I don't know if it translates very well on the video here, but there is a pretty harsh ridge that we're flying over right there. And I want to land beyond that ridge. There's the IVA view. It's like, hey, Jeb, you want to see a docking port? You can stare right at it. So we do have a pretty harsh surface speed, but I have a lot of fuel, so I can knock that back real quickly. Now, a valley, this could be a good place to land. I think it's a good place to land. But you see all these ridges, all these slopes and everything. It is not the flattest area. Plus, I have to compete with the fact that this is a very tough thing to land and control because it is so top-heavy. Poor design decisions were made, that's for sure. I could have put the viewing cupola on the bottom or on the other side very easily. I said, for my next Planetary Landers and missions, this is a good learning experience for what can I do in the future to make this better. But still, Chad Hat is confident. Jebediah is just chipper as always. And I could try an EVA to get even more science right now while flying, but we're pretty much there. So I'm going to take my surface speed down. And you can see the ground scatter. I was wondering where the ground scatter was before. It turns out at some point my options turned off ground scatter. I don't know why. And I apologize for that. It's just random congestion all of a sudden because where I live, there's always pollen all the time. So about 25 seconds till landing. And I've just got to really hope for a flat place. I do not want to flip. I want to actually have a space station that stands upright. And from the looks of it right now, I could very well be landing on a massive ridge that's going to knock me straight over. And that's not good. I want to avoid ridges, but there's just so many of them around here. And because I'm not flying like super, super low, I don't have a great orbital survey here, but might be able to make it. So we're just going to slow down a little further. I put the solar panels up just to protect them in case I do happen to flip or rotate. Which I guess is a good point to bring up here now, is that I do have 4 fuel tanks here. Some people may have wondered what last episode, is it cheating for me just to go ahead and ditch those fuel tanks in the map mode? My view of it is that crews, when they have extra parts like that on an interplanetary mission, or probably have the tools prepared to like cannibalize those and use those materials for something else. So that's what I'm saying is happening here. Oh man, I do not know where that cough came from, and I'm going to get some comments like, oh my god, don't do this while you have a clogged nose. But sorry guys. So once again, I'm watching the nav ball, but I also have to watch the ground scatter and everything else. So we're at 15 meters per second and falling. Ike does have very similar gravity credentials to the moon, but we're one of the issues is that while our surface's speed and vector is pretty much vertical, the problem is that we are not going to be landing necessarily vertical. And I have a few options here. I could ditch all my tanks at the last second and just hope that the thrust keeps me upright, because it'll be 4 directions of thrust all at once against my ship. Maybe that'll be enough to knock it upright. But the other thing is that it actually looks like where I'm landing is reasonably flat. I was very concerned about that, but there we go. And 1 hop, 1 lean. Okay, we're not having a Duna repeat. This is down. This is almost down. Almost down. I think we're stable. So shutting down all the engines anyway, because why not? I'm going to be ditching all these stages in just a second, but the more important thing is that I am actually standing upright, which is not always what you expect here. So there is Duna on the horizon. Not on the horizon, in the sky. I was hoping to make a landing somewhere where Duna would be a little bit more on the horizon, but what can you do? So there's the fuel tanks. Oh, the fuel tanks. Okay, they're not going to knock me over, at least. They're all just standing up upright too. So we will do the cough, cough, nudge, nudge. And by the magic of the movies, here we are. We're on Ike, and all of those fuel tanks have magically disappeared. Look at all those extra resources Chad and Jeb have to work out here. So there is Duna once again. There's my space station in all of its attempted glory. And there's so much science that we can have. I can run a soil analysis and resource analysis just to see if there is some ore here, which is good. We can get our panels back out. Now, I do need to put more solar panel arrays or something here because I have research that I want to be doing. And 0.3375 per day is awesome, but it is going to take a lot of power. So next is little Jeb. Here he comes. And we get all the sciencing that we can handle here. EVA report from just above the southeastern mountain range. So this is its own distinct biome. I wasn't sure what that would be the case. And you can actually, if you ever want to look at a biome map in game, you can use the debug menu for that. I know some people prefer to just go to the wiki, do the same thing, but I mean, I think it's pretty helpful to actually see it in game if you're really not sure if there's a biome you're missing. I mean, it's information that's readily available if you just want to look at maps and stuff. It's one of those things that I'm a little surprised you can't tag biomes in game already. But there we go, climbing on down, and up there goes the ladder. There goes Jeb. Now Jeb pilot, Chad Hat scientist. So Chad Hat's going to have to do a lot of work. Hoping that we don't have a repeat once again of Duna where he gets so excited to fly that he just happens to obliterate the solar panels. But yeah, I think my next landing stations are not going to be upright standing like this, just because it is a bit harder to nail, or it's a bit more difficult to land with the landing legs like this when it's just one vertical tube. So Ike Station, don't know when we'll be home again, and that's because I didn't count my pilots properly. So Jeb, one of my most experienced pilots, will be out of commission for quite some time. I guess that means that I'm going to want to bring a rescue mission at least to get the people off of Ike. The Duna squad can just stay there. They'll probably be doing science till Kingdom Come. But there is Jeb, ever so happy. See if we can get a good shot. That's the thing with Duna being so high up. It's really hard. But yeah, there's crazy face Jeb. Happy as you please. He's like, you know what? If there's anyone that can handle being stranded on a moon for a few years, it's Jeb. Plus, because they are facing Duna, the moon is not going to block their communications. Because obviously, did I put any additional communication satellites up? No. No, I didn't. But we still have Chad Hat to do the rest of the science here, so let's go ahead and get him out. EVA! Hey, Chad. You're upside down. I guess upside down is a relative term, so here we go. Now he's standing, and I guess good to just let him hop around, do his own photo op here in just a second. Because I haven't done enough like, hey, look, here's all of our crew. Just standing around here. We actually made it. I can send a postcard. Our helmets are clipping. So look, happy guys, just chilling on Ike, watching Duna. They're going to be here a while. And I mean, but like I said, at least they can see the planet all the time. So any communications that goes through Duna, as long as that base station is not on the other side of the planet, which will happen sometimes. So there's our second photo op. And now we get to fly without knocking over this capsule, because I'm pretty sure I could get enough velocity to actually knock this over. So got to try and be careful. This is where I actually discovered the larger service bay does have arms that you can grab onto, which is a pretty nice feature. It's not what we're using, or it lets you climb onto it, but that's not what I'm doing here. Fortunately, Chad is good at getting the pressure data, and we're just going to keep it and take it so that he can put it back in the capsule, and there will be a ton of science, probably between here in Duna. Oh, no atmosphere, so you can't do atmospheric analysis, but I can do barometric analysis. So, yeah, so it goes, right? But once again, the nice thing about science is that the scientist is that restore button, which is oh so important. Just because we can do that again. This is all data that we get to hold on to. I don't like putting beyond 500 data in my science stations just because it'll kind of float into the Netherlands. I'm not sure if you get it back again. So at least the big thing is that I can hold enough experiments here to keep them for a while. So here's the mystery goo. I can put all of this in there. This would be good science to return to, but I'm pretty sure I do not have enough fuel on the Behemoth or anything else on the lander to actually make an Ike landing, because it is pretty much a moon landing. I mean, you don't have to fly as far. You don't have to spend 800 delta V to get from Duna orbit to Ike orbit, because what is it? The moon like flies. That was actually a really close call for those solar panels. The moon is like 42 million miles away, or 42 million kilometers. 42 million miles would be significantly different. But in this game, Ike is so much closer. So there you go. There is all the data's collected. So what's next on the agenda here? That pretty much covers the mission itinerary for the Duna Behemoth to a point. All we have left is to get everything reunited and get everything ready to go home. And then we'll be sitting and waiting. So let's see. There's Chad Hat now doing research. You will be doing research for a very long time. What's Jeb going to do, though? Jeb, you know, you've been piloting for a while, and there is a hitchhiker lander can in the bottom full of snacks that are just ready to be eaten. So Jeb, finally you get to take a break. An extended break if you can actually get back down to where you're trying to go. So who needs ladders when you can just climb in? And in the hitchhiker pod, and let's actually do an IVA. I don't think I've actually looked in the hitchhiker pod before. Here we go. Look, food and not food, laundry, pictures. They don't have beds, but hey, that's okay. It's comfortable seating, right? So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for now. This is Asher with Kerbal Space Program. We've done most of what we came to do in Ike. We just have to let time finish so that we can get back. Here's the IVA for the science station in case you don't remember what it looks like. But yeah, I'm going to call this a video for now. Next time, we'll put the Behemoth back together and we will see what other goodies we get to do, because we're going to be unlocking some new tech, which should open up some new missions. And there is one more beautiful view of Duna from Ike. It's really nice, especially with the cloud mods. It adds a lot of flavor to it. But thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. We'll continue with more Kerbal Space Program. If you have ideas for missions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, the contracts will be my guide. Take care.